Right, this is another episode of Hot Take Point Made League of Legends edition. And as is our way nowadays, there will later on be some fan takes peppered among the hot takes that we will bring to the table. And as usual, don't worry, I've picked some good ones out. I've got some that are actually quite mad, so we'll leave those though. We'll weave them in as we go. So the question is, obviously, we want to start with a good take. Who's got a hot take to put on the table immediately? Anyone got one that's burst? Oh, Sabateen's volunteer. Okay, go for it then. Where are
Yeah.
we going?
So I have one pretty well thought, I think, hot take. So here is it's G2, the current G2, not the one from 3 months ago, not right. The current G2 is the single best European team since G2 2019.
You know, I didn't even need the sentence to end. As soon as he said like single best, I was already out. It didn't matter what he was going to say at the end of that. Okay, all right. Here's the thing. As usual, prepare the case, build it for us, explain why this would be.
If you look at everything post 2019 G2, I think early 2020 was pretty good, but it was never like with Caps ADC never been as good. Then they flipped again. They really didn't find their form. 2021 with Reckless is just a shit show. I think that they were pretty good at some peak level, but I think never really blended together. And then you come to the Yike era. Like I'm gonna skip 2022. They even didn't win.
Okay.
Like they were just like figuring out shit. So we go to the version with Yike and Mikix, which probably to everyone was the most dominating one. But I do believe that in terms of strategy, there were a lot of things they couldn't execute because they had a player profile that were never able to play, like for instance, carry role for Yike, and they were just straight starting Barons and winning pretty much on like sheer skill because they were so much better than any other team in team fights that they would just win out of that. Or like early snowball through bot lane, but they were never like that super versatile team. And I feel like with a player like Skumon, we know have the closest thing to if Inspired and Caps play together, meaning that Caps can benefit from the jungle in early game, but once he's ahead, they can like win the whole map just through jungle. That was never something that G2 could do before Yanko's 2019, and it was very, very short. And I think at this point, they can play through 3 lanes plus jungle, and they have the most control over objective that I've never seen them having. So for this reason, I think they're just a better team.
But the disclaimer is except the G2 Super Team of 2019. That's the exception.
Yeah. Right? The G2 Super Team of 2019 could do absolutely everything.
But so basically, this is the second best European team ever for you.
Yeah.
That's an even better hot take. The second best European. Okay. Current G2 is second best European. Go on then, Kira. There you go. Served up to you.
Oh, right. I can't say they're the second best team ever because I think there's been like Fnatic squads that I think have been like better and have done like amazing things. The second best version of G2. Now here's the problem. There's a lot of things that go in Zabateen's like favor. Like when Yike still has the statistical record for the best jungle split ever, which has initial rookie split, which is 2023 winter, is the statistically best jungle split anyone has ever done. Like the numbers are impossible.
As in like the KDA and stuff we're talking about.
Aye, but like the goal difference that he's personally got on him, it's 2,000 on average every game at 15 minutes. It's like, bro, the next closest is like Yankos and it's like 1,100 or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's blown out of the fucking water anything that else that's ever been done. And he's playing like all the like Kindred, Graves, Viego, Belveth, Maokai, all that stuff. Like this is like his time. The problem is, and this is the thing that comes to Zabateen, Caps isn't actually good then. And during 2023, Caps' form is all over the fucking place. But the bot lane's incredible. Mickey X and Hansama is off the scales. Then in 2024, Mickey X and like BB kind of regress a bit, but Caps is a lot better, and Yike has like a dodgy middle period. I actually think 2024 summer, towards like the very end, post MSI, into like the summer split, into the season finals, yeah, they have some really dicey like results, but the actual like end product of like G2, I think might still be better. This is like the one where Yike is playing like Zyra brand, Hansama and Mickey X have like ironed out like a lot of their stuff. Yeah, they lose like they lose in the final like the laning and stuff to like what do you call it, Jun and
No
What's his name? Yeah, Noah and June. But like that's all. Like Caps is at like a really good level. BB's got like all his like silver bullet packs. He's like able to like counter pick and everything. And they also beat now. Not so as a Fnatic that could just lose to G2 at any given time, but like the way they were like winning was like a lot more like replicable, and I actually think they had like a lot more depth of strategy. So I think they're a lot more comparable to them. The thing is like this team is like the best for like showcasing like Caps and Skewmond as like a unit. But I'm not sure the rest of the players are really in. Like, I'm not that sold in terms of, like, Labrov and Skewmond. Like, I think the heights that Yike and Mickey X hit together are still better than everything I've seen Skewmond and Labrov hit together, if you know what I mean, as, like, a package. So, in that consideration, I think jungle support is, like, a big part of, like, the EU meta. So, I'm a little bit, like, torn on them. I think they're very, very good. I think they would rate very highly. I think I would just pip them a little bit lower, at maybe third, fourth.
You think like Yike and Mickey X could execute the Zyra Renata at the level they've done against MCoy last weekend? I feel like I've never seen a jungle support play that well in ages, like since Yanko's Mickey X. That's actually what triggered the hot take for me. Because when I saw Renata, Zyra, and winning the game with very squishy champions, it's a very, very hard draft to execute. And against them, it's Elioya Alvaro, which is supposedly like the best jungle support in EU West. And you see them play space. You see them play fake information, you know, putting pressure on vision, while Skewmond is farming like 3-4 camps ahead of his opponent. And you see Elioya being unable to play the game from minute 1 to the end of the game while having very, very hard draft to execute at all point. I was like, wow, jungle support like this, plus Caps, plus BB, plus Hansama. Like, I haven't seen that since, I don't know, 2019. They weren't anything comparable to that before the Esports World Cup, but I think something clicked and like they just seem unbeatable. Like the margin they have on MCoy is unreal. Like G2 2023, sorry, I'm extending, 2024 were so dominant, but there was nothing against them. Right now you have MCoy, you have KC, and they all look like fools when they play against G2. What do you think, Thorin?
Right. The problem I have with this is overall, it's not that this isn't one where I'm like hard on one side or the other. I think you can make a case for this. Like, first of all, I do actually think that if you ever do, this is why I asked if I can just say that you're saying they're the second best European team of all time. I actually think most of the Fnatic runs are actually overrated. The 2015 one, the 2018 one. I mean, I actually exposed it myself. Notice nobody in any of those teams, guys, has ever come forward and said I lied about this. I exposed that, like, if it was up to the players in 2018 Fnatic, they would literally have benched Reckless, played with Whippo, and just lost to the group stage. Like, that team wasn't that was a dead team, basically. Like, it was never going to continue on. And that was just one of those scenarios. If people know, and the problem is you have to know other esports games, unfortunately. I can tell you in Counter-Strike, it's actually a really famous phenomenon when you know the team has got dead. You would think you'd play worse. Oftentimes people play better because actually there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know, don't stress too much about this tournament. Just do what you can, and you sort of play free and with abandon because you know it's not a real roster and you're not building towards anything. You just do what you can. So in a weird way, like, I always thought that team was slightly overrated anyway. That was also probably one of the worst runs ever for Korea and fucking Worlds, by the way. They were just irrelevant in that one pretty much. And then the 2015 one, I think, just gets slightly overrated because people don't know how far ahead Korea was in that tournament. Like, there was zero chance any Western team was beating a Korean team. So I don't really care that you made the semis. You made the semis because you played against like EDG or fucking Flash Wolves. You didn't play against like KT Rolster.
LGD choked as well.
Yeah, there was that as well. Absolutely. The Chinese teams also were fucking up in the group stage. Like, this, notice in the two best runs for Fnatic, basically, one major region just shit the bed completely. Like, that helps. That'll boost you up. So if we're just going, like, the reason I like this hot take in a way, though, is because the hot take actually hinges not on things like how good were the past teams. It basically hinges, and what makes it so spicy is that we haven't seen, as he says, if he's only meaning this splits G2, not the one from last split, not the one from MSI and EWC. If he means this one, we haven't seen it play internationally yet. So for all we know, his take could look awesome in like a month from now or whatever, when Worlds comes, if they actually show the things he's talking about and they have some great control over comps that no one else can play and they beat, I don't know, Hanwha Life or something like that, or Top Esports, and then it'll look really awesome. So I like that aspect of the hot take, because basically you're judging it, like you say, of domestic play, whereas we already do know what happened to the international runs of all the other teams. But I actually think the reason why I slightly side against it is I'm not going on like the specific comp angle you are of like how could you execute that. That does show a level of like technical ability, I guess you'd say, if you think of like a football concept. But here's the reason why I actually sort of agree with Kira. If I had to pick a squad, I low-key might actually also pick the like very early roster he was talking about with the Yike and Mickey X one, because I agree. The one where, if people remember, it was winter going into spring, and by the way, they probably should have won both 4 splits really, right? That was the one where the bot lane was actually insane. Like, for real, they would just win. The game literally was just accelerate the bot lane, and then we just win the game in like 20 minutes or 23 minutes or something. And it was nuts how like actually clean they were at just smashing every opponent. Like, it's funny because that same roster, as it went on, actually had later times where it couldn't get early starts and then it had problems in the mid game. And people will only remember that, but it was really good at the outset. Now, true, I will say it wasn't a flawless roster. That was when essentially every like great jungler I know that's in my DMs off camera is like, mate, we'd all like to have a fucking setup like Yike. He's basically like walked into like every jungler's Make-A-Wish Foundation, fucking like 3 winning lanes, coach just drafts what's carefully selected for you and then tells you don't do all these things that a jungler's expected to do. Like, that's actually the dream. But I think the reason why that still is okay is because people will also forget, sadly, the very beginning of that roster, Mickey X was the best player in the whole team. Not like, oh, he was a liability. Like, it was years later where he was a liability. No, this was, he was just nuts, mate. Like, this is why people drew the comparison. He was like an EU carrier in many regards. Not only was he like unreal, like in his role support, that was even back when, like Kerry, he was just pulling out all these crazy pocket picks. I wrote them down while you were talking. This is when he was playing like Heimerdinger, Talia, Ash. By the way, obviously people will know later he's played the Poppy and the Lysandra. Even, by the way, tried shit that didn't even work, like Java and stuff like that, like absurd picks that probably shouldn't even be attempted. So at the time, he could basically do whatever he wanted. And I do think that angle, it didn't actually work out on that MSI, but there's a reason why that was that was the MSI everyone was like, gee, could make a run in, and maybe they could be like top 3, top 4, and they could really challenge like they did the following year when they kind of like flat to deceive. So my issue is I do feel like that was OP. And then lastly, the thing that also gave that an extra feather in the cap, as it were, is that was back before Fearless. And before Fearless, I do think Dylan Falco was more OP. Like, I do think he was one of the few coaches I've ever met who both knew his own players, knew how to draft, but also was like masterful at baiting the other team. He just somehow always understood, based on like past matchups and presumably scrims, like what the other guy will think is a concession but is actually bait, basically. He was just too good at it. Like, I even know the coaches who would always say like it only really is like some Yu-Gi-Oh moment when you go like, you've revealed my trap. Oh shit, fuck. I thought I'd got him on that one. And then they would always, the problem is in Fearless, I feel like that doesn't exist anymore for Dylan Falco specifically. That edge is gone. And also, I don't know in this team that it works. So my problem with this team is this. If you want to compare that aspect, the support jungle duo, listen, already, if we want to point out the flaws of Yike, mate, I'll take Yike being babysat with the fucking training wheels on and jungle over this Labrov. Like, this Labrov's still fucking just like all right. He's good in some games. Has he ever actually had a game, by the way, where anyone thought he looked like the best support? I don't think I've ever seen it the whole year long. Like, people, you can say what you like about Alvaro, whatever. They're all way better than this guy, in my opinion. So I think the Labrov angle is what makes it fall down a bit. I could believe in the future, because I think Skewmod is actually like, I don't know how anyone was out on him this year. For me, you just buy stock every time that dips, I'm buying again, mate, because I've told people he's not just going to be good, he's probably going to be like a generational jungler in our fucking region. Like, he actually probably is the heir to like a Yankos type person. So that part I'm hyped on. Yeah. I do think the 3 carries are pretty good. That's the last thing I'll say. I also think the problem with this take is, in a weird way, it's not as bad because actually now Broken Blade's really leveled his game up. Hans Sama was good the whole time. You still got 2 or 3 carries. I don't think Caps now is as good as 2 years ago, though. I think if you go back to the period we were talking about, he was still hit and miss, but his ceiling was a bit more. Maybe he's now, I'd say now he's more consistent, but he just doesn't have the like 10 out of 10 games anymore. For me, a good Caps game is like an 8 out of 10 game and you play it semi-responsibly. That's not really what I used to think of as Caps. I thought he was an X factor. So I don't mind this one. I'm more on the fence on this one. I could go either way on this one. I think it's a good take, though, because I actually like, as I say, the construction of the hot take isn't just the team. It's sort of the exact timing of when you're doing the take, which I think is a good angle. I like that. All right, I'll do man then. Fuck it. I'm coming in hot now. Are you ready?
All right, here we are.
So let me just double check. I'm quickly just going to check the exact like time frame here because I want to make the take make sense contextually. So let me just quickly look when I would have to pick for this. Like, can I go back to... Yeah, there we go. I'm going to say for the last month, for the last month. So it is currently like roughly halfway through September. So from halfway on August to now, halfway into September, the best player in League of Legends is BDD from KT Rolster. It's not Chovy, it's not Knight, it's not fucking Tarzan, it's not Kerrier, it's not Canyon, it's not any other player. It is actually, here's what's mad about this hot take. I actually think somehow, I'll give myself a bit of props, but I'll also take some away. I actually think this is one of the most obvious hot takes you could ever come up with. I actually think most people who are experts, if you think about the very specific framing I gave, would probably even actually at least give me like a chance this is true, if not outright agree with me. I think the real angle why I've made it a hot take is no one else has thought to frame it that way. If you haven't noticed, as you see on the show, I'm actually quite good, even with other people's takes, of sort of like reframing the take, so it's the same take, but it sounds even more epic. Like, the part people have missed, basically, is the story with BDD was, KT was way worse than this a month ago, by the way. Like, it's actually only in the last few weeks the rest of the team, people like Docdam have good games, and Cos, remember, he used to be like a top jungler. That wasn't the case a month ago. A month ago, by the way, BDD was for real 1v9 in games, and he was, like, even back then, it would be hard for him to win the series, but he would win you like one game, or he'd get you into a game. And also, the other reason this take is so spicy is because I actually think BDD himself, much like a faker, has like two careers, except his are like the other way around. His first half of his career, he's just a really fucking consistent, like elite, but like mage type boring ass mid laner. This last half where he's had all this hardship, bro, it's like activated some extra gear in this guy or something, where somehow now he's got this like crazy killer instinct edge, where now you put him in like a team that's bad and he just does that shit where it's like they just fight for dear life and he just forgets that his teammates suck and just takes every possible angle and every fucking move you can do in the game and just does it. And actually, it's legit insane, some of the games I have now seen him play against the best players in the best teams in the LCK. Like, he has had some games that are beyond Smurf games. Like, these are just like life games, mate, as we call them in Counter-Strike, where it's like the best game of your career. So, and then you look at his roster. You tell me a single other person who's a candidate for best player in the world, and their roster is going to look twice as good as this guy's roster. Like, it's going to be laughable how much better it is. You take Chovy, whoever it is, their roster is going to be worlds above. Like, there's nobody with a roster like this guy's who has this level of performance. And as I said, it's not like he is just like, just players in. Now, no, mate, this guy, go watch that fucking Zoe game he had against Gen G. That is like mind-melting shit, mate. That was unbelievable. So there you go. BDD is the best player in the world over the last month.
So it's you know that I do not watch as much LCK because it's just right during when I sleep. So I mostly see the results, and so I was in a discussion with my chat about what was the strongest 1v9 carry against, walk against the wind performance in history of League of Legends. And the two finalists, right? The debates eventually came to HLE with Chovy when he had Morgan.
Oh, right, sure.
And the current BDD. Because everybody tells me the current BDD is just like. But I would say, if just by the I'm a Cuz hater, so I do not believe he can be carried by any player in his team. Maybe Cuz sometimes has good games, but that's about it. And the few games I've seen from KD this year, it was actually absolute 1v9 performance the way Chovy used to do. So I can't go against the take. I actually can't go against the take. I don't watch as much games, so I can't go super analytical into it.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna go against the take, because by just results and by knowledge of players that he plays with, I can't believe that it's anything but a BDD show.
As I suggested myself at the end of the point, I think most people think to be the best player, you have to be the best player on the best team. So that's why I also built in the point that, like, I don't even think anyone else is in the categories on a bad team. So where are you at on this one, Kira?
Well, just one quick thing before I address your point, Thorn. The answer to your one, Zabatine, your chat, whoever the fuck's in your chat ain't knows, mate. The answer to that's Flandre and Snake. Nobody here can, apart from Thorin, can name the other four teammates on Flandre, and he got them second in the LPL and one game away from Worlds. No one can name his teammates. You won't know them. He plays with a fucking Korean jungler called Beast. The guy was literally a fraud, like a straight up lied about his fucking career. Anyway, not getting to that. The answer's almost always Flandre on Snake Gaming. The guy was a fucking god. arguably best player in the world, one of the best hard carry jobs.
He's literally references from 10 years ago, though. But it's all good.
Yeah. I remember Blender and Snake, but I wasn't watching the games, so I can't say.
But that's why it's good that he brings it up, because it's the ultimate hipster pick. It's like, actually, it would be 10 years ago on the team that no one remembers, and when there wasn't even an official LP on broadcast. Like, that's why it's the ultimate nerd take. I love it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Or Reapered with his friends. But anyway, we're not getting to that. Right. On Thorn's point, right, okay, I think BDD has been fucking unbelievable, right, okay? He is, like, actually, like, and here's the thing. When a team is structured around someone's individual success and them leveraging their individual success, it might not be the best way to play the game. But when it works and they override these other teams, and I say teams here that are better than them, they get all the props. The same way when Knight was carrying the fucking dogshit versions of TES with top laners changing every 3 days. The same way as Faker in the post Wolfbang years. The same way as like Chove with like, you know what I mean? You get your flowers. Someone doesn't get to be better than you because they organise a better team. And I think that should be like true right now. The thing is like, if I was to take Chove and have him play that theoretical style, would he be better than BDD? I think so. But right now, the way Gen G play is they play to enable a polar bear, and the polar bear had, like, I don't know, he was dying in the zoo or something. Like, fucking Canyon was just dog shit. Like, that is the worst series I have ever seen Canyon play almost in my entire life. Like, it was so mind-numbing. Like, he literally has no good game. He plays 5 bad games. He's not even good in the wins. Like, it's pretty grim. Like, even like his leverage in leads. But in saying that, the Chovy idea is a hypothetical. BDD is actually living and realizing it. Like, he is actually the person getting all the resources, getting all the picks, moving the game along, and he ain't getting like a free ride. Like, his like stats or like his achievements aren't against like the middling bottom feeder mids of it. It's like, no, he's actually like leading the way into like Chove. He's extracting his lane leads from the other candidate for the best player in the world. So I think there's basically like no doubt. If you don't want to say he's the best player, we'll just do the fucking like the Flash. He can't be a Bonjour. We'll just call him the ultimate weapon. He's the hardest carry in the fucking game. Like, whatever you want to describe it, like BDD is the best person when given resources at winning you games of League of Legends like right now. Like, that's a good like people will use any word to obfuscate like what does best mean? Is he the most dominant? What we're basically trying to say here is BDD, when given resources and all that, is just the person who wins you the games, right? Like, relative to what his team is able to win at. His margin for error compared to like Chove, Faker, his peers, Knights is a bit closer, but still probably a bit above Knight, is ridiculous, by the way. Like, it is literally, he's either the best player in the server or the second best player in the server, and KT has to win because of that. And it's fucking stellar. BDD is such a sick player. This run from 2023 to like now, by the way, mate, he's been fucking lights out, mate. He was even good against the JDG in 2023, that like when Knight played him in the quarterfinals and stuff. Like, mate, he's standing tall against that team, mate, trying to hold back like the tsunami and trying to make it close, mate. Like, he has like...
By the way, even though Yamato has mentioned it every fucking time we bring this up, he's also right. The very infamous 2023 KT, where they were like number 1 and they blew it because they kept picking T1. Ever go watch those games? There's a reason Faker fans don't bring those games up, because T1 beat KT, but fucking Faker wasn't doing shit against BDD, mates. That was the one player that didn't collapse.
Yeah, and, mate, BDD is actually... Like, it's funny because, like, to give, like, an analogy is like BDD was basically like a consistency version of Chove before like Chove came along and revolutionized like how consistent a player can actually be. But that doesn't undermine like what BDD has like been doing these like past couple of years. Like I think genuinely over this past 3 period, he might be the third best player or the second best player over the period. I really do go between him and like Knight. It's just Knight got to go to all the internationals and BDD didn't. Like that's the difference maker. But if you look at his like hanging of execution for there's periods of it where he's on a way worse team, he's fucking sick, by the way. Unreal.
Yeah. Also, even that KT super team, those names don't look as good now, do they? Yeah, Keen looks awesome. That might be better. Because He was there, by the way, there. Everyone forgets he was on the team. Lens, you all hate him. Now he's on non-chip. You all think he's dog shit. And then Aiming has been fucking laughed out of every playoffs for the last, 2 years. So actually, if anything, that KT Rolster super team looks even better for me. He was cracked, yeah. And this is all, by the way, we're talking about all of this in the actual literal peak era of Chovy, where Chovy every year is just the best player. Yes, I know he doesn't win the magical awards because that's not how those awards work, but he is the best player each year. Okay. There we go. There's a Thorin take. I like that one because, like I say, I just think no one's thought on that level before. I actually think more people would probably agree with him, people would expect out there. Right, okay. Where we go next? Kira, do you have a take?
So I've got one. Actually, all roads about that, your take led me back to here. So I actually think if you go back to the JDG super team, and I've been doing a bit of research, I've been watching old LPL VODs. I actually think, in hindsight, Kanavi, 369 and Missing are all way fucking
By the way, that's
overrated.
your mistake there. That's where you fucked up, K-Ray. You're going to have arguments with people who never even watched the games to begin with or vaguely remember them. You're rewatching them, so you're making them information even more of a disparity. They're never going to agree with you, bro. So, okay. You've been rewatching the old JDG. What have you found now? What's the content?
I think Kanavi, even beyond the old JDG, I was watching stuff from the 2020 period before all the way through. I actually think Kanavi, 369 and Missing are all particularly Missing, but all Kanavi and 369 are all actually really overrated as star players. And let me explain to you what I mean by this, okay? Kanavi, as an actual bus driver, has very little relative success, particularly when he takes his team internationally. He has won the LPL, which is obviously a commendable thing. He has never beaten a Korean team in a BO5. Ever. He has never been the driving force of taking an LPL team, and the only time he done it was when he had Knight and Ruler. That was the only time. And if you go look at it, in my opinion, I think he's playing second fiddle to how good those guys are. Take 369 as well, who also shared some of that time period with Kanavi. They were on some of the teams. This guy might have the ultimate resume of going abroad and then just losing to people that he shouldn't be. And again, he's only beaten LCK teams when he played with Knight and Ruler and or Knight. They can in terms of actually beating the candidate best teams. The only people who are doing it are the BLG squad at MSI done it, and then it's JDG with when it was the stacked roster. Because once you remove Knight, those and you took Knight out of the team and you moved the piece around, you actually look at their ability to beat rosters. That TES went to first stand, they had an embarrassing 1-3 record. You know what I mean? It was one of the shocks of the tournament. The one series win they have over the LCK, I think, is EWC. They beat Gen G in the BO3, which is the ultimate good times to be bailing it. Not that they have outright bad performances. Obviously they push Gen G to game 5 at MSI, but then it's preceded by them getting blown out by Gen G in the lower bracket. And it's to do with what does the team look like when Kanavi or 369 are supposed to be the best players on their team? What is the actual results of that team? And they're supposed to be the outright, the carry jungler, getting all the resources. It doesn't actually result in beating the top tier teams. Unless you then bring in more star power, Ruler, arguably the best player of that year by many analysts, candidate for the best ADC of all time, Knight, the best LPL mid ever in my opinion. Would you call it a candidate for the best player from from his region for that period? You bring in that level of firepower, you get the success. So, and if you go back, you look at their individual stuff. 369's tenure of when he's dominant is tied heavily to the domestic play, and it just never translates internationally. He's got probably the biggest relative drop off as being when he in 2022 summer, when he was a candidate for the best top laner in the LPL, he then goes to Worlds and he has an absolute meltdown. He's getting solo killed. He's losing to I think he loses. Is that the one where he gets killed by Odoamne? I think so. But there's a complete thing about this. So I actually think they're a little bit overrated in terms of how much of a bus driving force they actually are.
Okay.
It's such a niche take. It's so hard for me. You take it's the baseline is rewatching JDG games from 2022.
To be fair though, a lot of his reference was the international games. You all saw those. You saw those games.
I've seen them. I would say I believe my biggest disappointment for Kanavi was he was playing in the Asian games, right? I think he was back then, right? with that roster with they had Faker, Chovy, Kanavi, Ruler, like they had a lot of
He
players
played
going
in
there.
2022 Asian Games apparently.
Yeah. And I was very disappointed first by seeing him because like the promise that people told me is like this guy is absolutely insane. I don't like over aggressive players. I think Kanavi is like in the niche of junglers comparable to Razork. And it's like you need to really be at the peak of your level at all points to play that way. And I think that these type of players, they are big inters, and if they don't play with super strong firepower, as you were saying, I think they take all the good opportunities and some bad ones, and overall it net positives if he's surrounded by really great players because they're gonna edge it out in his favor. But I don't think like this is like the definition of best level junglers ever. And I've never thought of Kanavi as like everybody really loves him, and I always thought he was pretty overrated. For 369, I feel like when he plays good, he's so insane though. Like when I watch him play good games, like my last memory of him is first 10, he's playing Gragas. His whole team shits the bed. Like it's a complete joke. And he's here like making the most insane mechanical Gragas plays, play after play, peeling the right champion, controlling the right champion, leaving with 3 HP, using perfectly the timing of his passive to re-enter the fight. He's playing amazing. And then I look at the result, it's just losing. So I'm like, okay. And then I go to the next game and it's completely insane. So it's like, he has the kind of like variation in performance that Bwipo has, where when he's on, you feel like he's like the guy that ever really like the promised land, player. And then suddenly he's really, really bad. And I think these players are as well very bad at being drivers in a team. Like you can have high variance of performance. It works when you're playing with great players. Bwipo is probably the biggest inter of FlyQuest. He wins some, but loses some. And some of the ones that he should lose, he wins them because he's playing with Quad, with Masu. So I would agree with that take. But I would say they're still amazing players that you can only like slot in at the end. Like you do your off season, you've secured like really great names, and then you have like which jungle I want, and you can actually get Kanavi or you can get 369 at the top. If you're playing with Chovy and I don't know, Ruler or Smash, you can slot him in, no problem. Like he's gonna lose some, but I think overall you're still gonna have a great top laners. But if you start with him, you're set for failure. Because if you don't get insane carries, your team just look like a bunch of clowns. That's what happened to me when I got Soaz at Immortals. I was like, oh, great. I have such a great mind that can win some games. And I had no firepower in the format. And I was just looking at my team having great ideas and losing every single skirmish and team fights. So I would say I'm pretty much on your side.
I'm definitely going on the other side of this one because here's the problem. You picked 3 players though, and so the problem is I would agree with you for missing and for 369. But listen, the missing one I don't really even get because as far as I can tell, no one ever gave this guy any credit in JDG 2023. In fact, his name was missing. They never ever mentioned it. They just mentioned the other 4 players. My joke about that team is people used to undershadow fucking Knight in that team because Ruler existed, because 369 was every top laner's favourite top laner, because Kanavi was like a carry fucking jungler. So I feel like even people like Knight got overshadowed a little bit by certain people. So to me, the one I can agree with first and foremost is 369, but there's also an angle to that which I can always tell when people started watching League, which is 369. Everyone else remembers him on JDG and then now on top. I remember the first run on top Esports. Yeah. And in the first run on top Esports, the logic went, this is actually like a solo lane team. Remember, their jungle at one point was fucking Carcer, but like at the end of being good. So that was supposed to be, Knight is like maybe the best mid laner but uncrowned, and then actually 369 is some like at the time stud carry top laner. That's who he was. And then what happened was when you went to international, Knight did the Chovy where you don't actually like shit the bed, you just don't carry. And then 369 used to just in his tits off. He used to just do it at all these fucking tournaments and be shit. And so he was never that good a player. Then he went to JDG, and actually part of what I think gave him his credit in JDG, much like Kanavi, I'll tie it to this now, is that they played with people like Yagao, people like Hope, people that aren't considered elite players at their position. And if you can win the LPL with Yagao as your mid laner, listen, Yagao is the Niski of fucking China. He's not a bad player, but he's not supposed to be the champion. He's not supposed to win fucking LPL. He's definitely not supposed to win Worlds and be in semis and stuff. So I think that people gave a lot of his credit to Kanavi 2369. And then, when you then had the super team where you have Knight and Ruler and Kanavi, well, at that point in time, if you're 369, it's unsurprising you can look at your absolute best then. Like, basically, you're just weak-sided like a god, and he was unbelievable at doing that, and then he also was amazing in team fights. So I can see why he got a little bit overrated in that sense. But my problem is, I never ever really thought, like, individually, he is like the, you know, fucking monolith of top lane. I always thought, surely that team shows you his strength, which is to be the weak side player. I'm sorry, if you're the absolute best top laner, you have the team built around you and you're the carry. We play in the LPL, for fuck's sake, boys. That's the league where you get to play fucking Jace and Nidalee and all that, Gwen, all that shit, mate. It's not like some weak side region typically. If you have a stud carry top laner, you do. So his best years, in my opinion, have come. It's even still to the case to this day, when he's the tertiary carry and then he just weak sides for the mid and the ADC. And then what he does is, I think people appreciate that he's the guy who can always like grind out like the fucking tiny advantage while the weak side, or he doesn't get an advantage against him, or he plays without resources so the jungler can carry the rest of the map. So 369, I'm with you. I think he was always slightly overrated, even though he's a very good player. The missing angle, like I say, I think people just didn't give a fuck about him. I'm totally fine with him being overrated. I think you saw when Ruler fell off, he massively lost his game. And then this year, look, he was actually the one name. Arle wasn't. That was because of outside the service shit. Missing was deservedly cut. He just wasn't very good this year. The one I don't agree with on is Kanavi. Listen, I will be the first to tell you, I do think he's an international choker. I think he's had some issues. But I do think he was unreal in the LPL. Like I've said in the past, domestically, he's like one of the best players ever. Because my problem is, when you say that line, which is correct, like his best ever time, the only time he's beaten Koreans in BO5, which basically means beating like a top 5 team in the world usually, is when he had Ruler and Knight. Yeah, because all the other times, mate, he had like fucking Yagao, or he had fucking, what was his name? Cream. Cream is a serial choker, and Yagao was just never an elite mid laner. So I actually think that, is, if anything, I'm more impressed with what he was able to do with those people. I agree, he never had those big games. That's also because I just think he's a bit of a choker internationally. So if you want to say he's overrated because he's a choker, I'm with you. My problem is, I know most people have never seen him in the LPL, so they think what he did. People do this thing. I'll explain it very quickly in 10 seconds. People take the one performance you have at Worlds and they go, aha, that's who you really are. And it's like, no, the person you really are is who you are every other day of the year. Like that one performance, in the same way as nobody watched Worlds 2022 and went, well, that's it. I guess Zeke is the GOAT. But you should have, off that one tournament. By the way, Zeke at that tournament carried harder than Faker in like every single one of his Worlds wins. Like, Zeke had smurfed the whole event. But we all know that isn't who he was in 2022. It's definitely not who he is for his career. But I feel like people do the opposite. They do that with Kanavi. They just look at the international because they don't watch LPL and go, fucking sucks, didn't he? And it's like, I don't think he does, but I agree he's slightly overrated. But that one, I think only slightly. I do think Kanavi's still insane. But I'll give you the 369 one and the missing one. I don't even know if anyone's going to fight against that. Wouldn't everyone just agree with you?
Hey, here's the thing is, I'll give Kanavi one caveat. His actual moment of like being like his uncrowned king moment was when he didn't get to go to MSI in like 2020 with Spring and Zoom when he was his top laner. Like that team going to that MSI along with like the C9 team, like obviously they got to miss it as well. Like that was like a missed opportunity. Like as in like I actually think there was a good chance he could have won.
Like, put it this way, I think that he is the most 1v9 jungler the LPL's ever seen, mate. And one last thing, you've just reminded me of something. One last thing to throw in there. He isn't from China, mate.
Exactly. I know, I get that.
He's playing jungle. He's not from the same country. Like, listen, I'm sure by now he speaks some Mandarin, but that's still fucking pretty nuts. Like, I will always give extra points to Rookie, Doinb, Kanavi. These guys are all fucking playing the game on hard mode, mate. Even the Shy. Like, that's not easy. But so I think that's worth pointing out. Okay. What about, let's do a fan take. Right, here's one for you. Speaking of, are you ready? So, by the way, if you want to submit a fan take, subscribe to Last Free Nation Discord. There's a channel in a section called like crewmates or something. There's a channel, as well as questions for Summoning Insight and the CS hot take point made. You can submit them for this show. It'll be like LOL hot takes or something. If you don't want your name read out, say that. Otherwise, I'm going to read it out as we roast you. So, Breaketh says, Doinb should be the next mid laner / captain of T1 if Faker was to retire after this year. Here's his reasoning. Doinb is a faker Xiaohu-esque player, a shot-calling captain mid-laner that has proven his capabilities. Doinb would actually have a team and not just 4 wards. There isn't a high-level top laner that is an IGL on the level of faker or Doinb. Replacing owner or carrier are too good. He means like if you replace them, they are too good. Then it would be a downgrade to replace them for a shot-calling upgrade. An ADC as IGL would be stupid. So anyway, that's his case. He thinks Doinb, if Faker was to retire, Doinb's the man to replace him. Thoughts, boys? You muted, by the way, Zabatine.
Yeah. Just
on you go, Dava. You take this one first.
I don't know. I feel like it's so far-fetched. I feel like it's really, the people who don't get anywhere close to what's happening in the team, they have this kind of fantasy about how players behave with each other. And especially like what I don't understand is this fantasy still lives on while we have access to the comms. And it's really baffling for me because we know the level of shot calling that Faker has at T1. And it's nothing amazing like, for instance, Doinb does where he speaks like he's shoutcasting the game and calling people's timers and stuff because he's that shot caller. Like he's probably the best shot caller of all time.
Yeah, I think so.
Like for people who have the reference, I don't see any player that's able to time the summoners of the bot lane and the jungle while laning and being able to watch the camera on both sides and shot calling at the same time. Like nobody does that. Like he's the ultimate ADHD
There was
mid-laner.
one time I remember they showed a clip, Zabatine, where he literally was typing in chat the jungle timer as he like sidestepped like a fucking ability or something in mid lane, and it was like, what? Like you assume you do that on the back or something, like no, it's true. Like some of the clips are nuts. It's true.
And then you watch T1 comms and you have Faker saying, bot lane no flash coming. And then they execute this absolutely insane dive. Nobody talks on the voice chat.
Yes.
Just everybody knows exactly what they have to do. And it's like, nicer. And then everybody recalls. And it's like, oh God, we need someone like Faker that can shot call. I'm like, where did you guys pick that from? Like we have the proof that he's not that guy. And you are like, oh, the only one that can fit his shoes, which obviously nobody really can, is the guy that shot calls. That's living in China, probably has money in China, doesn't want to get out of China. I think he's married in China as well, right? Probably has a family in China. It's like, if it's one person, we're just going to drag this guy out of his current life situation, just throw him because he's able to like time summoners on side. While Faker
I will say the part that makes
so
this a massive hot take is like actually what you're alluding to. Doinb is also one of the only players I know that's Korean who's never given any indication he wants to go home, even, bro. Like that's as far as I know. The joke is even Doinb would go. Actually, that shouldn't happen, mate. Like he would disagree with the take, basically.
One of the weird things about like Doinb is like more than any other player, even though because he gets like he's like a caricature. Like people like think they know who Doinb is, but there's so many different versions of like Doinb. Like there's a version of Doinb who literally can't lane at like tier 1 League of Legends, but he knows this. So what he's going to do is he's going to have just the best mechanical jungler like ever, and basically just like pseudo funnel him, right? Okay, and just give and play like basically CC bot. Then there's a version of Doinb who will play like cheating, pushing mid laners, and he's just going to move to side lane on every single like wave. Then there's a version of Doinb that is literally the most farm heavy player ever. It's where he's like Rise 400 CS running into your team with like tank items and like blowing people up. Then there's a version of Doinb who's actually sick at laning. He's playing like Aurelia mid, he's out playing people. There's all these different versions of like Doinb, right? The version you're basically taking this very like niche part of like who Doinb is, and you'll be like, oh, he communicates well, right? And you're saying I'm going to use that and I'm going to apply it to Faker. But that's not really like what it wants. Like for example, there's not really a version of Doinb that ever lanes as well as Faker. Like Faker's obviously fell off as a player. He still like lanes out matchups like very very well, like very very methodically. Like his Orianna, his Galio's, his Silas's, his Akali's, like he's really good at last hitting under the turret, prepping the wave, managing his health bar. Yeah, the rest of his team helps him out in these like matchups, but like that is Faker's still proficient. Is he like dominating the lane? No, that's not the point. But like Doinb doesn't do that. Like Doinb sometimes just like vibe checks and doesn't give a fuck about missing CS at times. And I've seen all sorts of this guy do all sorts of things. The one thing that would be really cracked is just seeing Doinb link up with like a super aggressive versions of like Owner in Korea, where you just ramp the aggression up to like 10, 15x. But would that be like a better version of like T1? Like, I don't think so.
You need Zeus in Smash then. Like, you need like insane, top bot lane carries that just like play animal. And that's a do or die type of roster. I mean, that's so un-T1, right? So unfit for the brand, but it would be so exciting to watch.
Yeah, like that's like the type of shtick of like, funnily enough, like, here's like a weird one. Yeah, I actually think Doinb would have been a better fit on like the Damwon teams with like fucking Showmaker, where it was like with Canyon. He would have been a better fit on like that team archetypally rather than like the T1 team. But yeah, it's just basically just saying, oh, he comms well. T1 needs comms. Let's stick him on there. It's a very different type of communication.
I will say I'll actually pick up on an echo Akira's sentiment. The real problem here is this also shows me who actually has the deep LPL lore knowledge, because Doinb has played for 10 years, and I agree. You can easily, I'll even go, like, I'll do the same thing. I think there's like 4 eras of Doinb. I'm with you. One, there's the first one, the Chowga Reapers one. He's just a whatever player, by the way. I can imagine at the time that was just like, get me a Korean. They got him a Korean. And if you remember, the entire strength of that team was just team fighting. They just had a really good team fight, basically. So very different to all the other Doinb teams. Then you come to the FPX era, right? That's the one people know because they win worlds. But what people always forget is when Nemesis made that famous 4-part on stream, he wasn't 100% wrong. You know where he said, I think it was when it was in like, I think it's when he got knocked out in the round of 8. And I think from the semis on, he made that comment where he was like, Doinb is the worst mid left in the tournament or something. He meant because he's Nemesis, and this is like the first year of his career at LEC level, he meant like in terms of like laning, mechanics, a solo queue player, basically. That's probably how Nemesis envisioned the game at the time. So on that level, he couldn't see what Doinb was doing, because Doinb was doing this, like, my fingerprints are on the rest of the players, and it's how I guide the support in the jungle through the game. Because that was when he was like the move mid laner, like you say. Like, the joke is, he didn't beat Caps straight up. He never played Caps. Caps never got to play a mid lane game of League of Legends then. Like, the comps and the way that Doinb shot called meant that, like, the team just fucking killed you dead straight up. Then you have the third one, I agree, which is when he was like, here's the thing, Doinb's actually been a 4-time MVP of the league. It was only the latter two were the ones I fuck with, though, because I agree, if you go to the end, though, the latter part of FPX, he actually was unbelievable individually then. Like, he was laning like a god. He was still doing all this shit as far as I can tell. Just the sad one is that was the worlds they bombed, that 2021, so everyone forgets it, and it's gone from their mind, unfortunately. That's essentially, he's a victim of that perks, and actually even Rogue was fucking them up in that tiebreaker thing. So then the last one is now, you think of when he came back this year, he's the guy who brought Pantheon mid out. Now he was playing all like fucking globals, and essentially he had like a dog shit team where he had to like basically like create the most perfect scenario to win the game, otherwise you can't possibly win. But he was like doing it in winter. That was the craziest thing. If people want to know how nuts this year's Doinb was at the beginning, the team that he is in with upgrades was in the fucking lower group for this summer split. In winter they were in the fucking upper bracket of the real LPL playoffs, like, and they were going 3-2 with people. Like, that's how cracked he was. So I agree, I know what you mean. They've basically taken the most caricature version of Doinb, like what, like, literally someone would draw as like a comedic sketch of like, here's the most exaggerated parts of his strengths and weaknesses, and what you're basically doing is you're taking my Faker Xiaohu thing and you're extending it too far. You're going, right, all Faker does in T1 is shot call and use his brain, but he has no hands. Oh wait, I know someone who shot calls and has a great brain and no hands, Doinb. And it's like, not really. Like, if he joined, he wouldn't be Doinb from fucking original FPX at the beginning. Like, he's not that player now himself. With that said, though, I'll give you a couple of angles I do think are fun, though. So one is, I will say, if you were to only know Doinb from the 2019 Worlds win, and you think of the FPX squad, I'll tell you what, that's not a terrible analogue for the current T1. So we've got an overrated a Korean top laner that's not actually that good. He's just good. In this case, Kim Gu was actual dog shit, but this Doran's not some super carry mega player, and also he actually got away with it for the whole spring split, but that's gone now. Like I'm sorry, like, the fucking the carriage is turned back to a pumpkin. The horsemen, they're just mice now. His dress is all gone. There's no, it's gone. It's done. So that's over with. So he's the Gimgoon of the team. Orna and Kerrier, these like super aggressive, sick. That's your fucking Tian and your Crisp right there. loving that angle. And then you've got a slightly overrated AD carry that if you put him on the right champion and get him to the right point in the team fight, can carry a team fight. There's LWX, there's Goomer for you. By the way, the best part about this is I'm just hurting all the T1 fans' feelings with all the players, because almost everyone I've compared them to, they're actually worse players than the debatably maybe the owner TM one might not be, but all the rest are worse players, I'll give you that. But it's just funny. And obviously I'll say Goomer's better than LWX, but I do think it's not a bad analogue. I can see why as a pleb take he came up with this. The last thing to say though is this, on the actual shot calling one, I agree with Zabatine. I think what people have misunderstood here is this. It's weird because I agree, there have been loads of comm videos over the years from T1. T1 have never had the comms of Doinb or the classic one from NA we all know was high back in the day when some of those VODs came out, and it was just him talking like a solo queue game with voice comms, like, do this, come in, pull back, hold up, I don't want you to go in yet, like, go in now, and he was just doing the same thing. He was shot calling the whole game. Almost no one in League of Legends does that, by the way. I don't even know anyone other than High and Doinb who've ever done that and had success. Like, it's actually extremely...
Mada?
Who?
Mada?
Here's the thing. I couldn't believe he shot called like when the top lane teleports and when he like invade the jungle, but I doubt he was, telling people in the mid lane when to freeze the wave and shit. I don't know if he ever did that much.
I remember interviews from Pound that said, like, I tell what Mada tells me to do.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
They're in team fights.
Anyway, the point is that would be the exception that proves the rule anyway. I would say this, though. I actually can draw you a comparison from a game where I know a lot about the shotgun, which is obviously Counter-Strike. In Counter-Strike, the player I often say is like the best in-game leader ever is someone called Carrigan, a Danish player who's worked with a lot of international rosters, almost fitting in this sense. And his style of calling basically is the faker style Zabatine's talking about. Here's what you do. You establish not what we're going to do specifically. You're not microing people. You establish your style of play, your profile, what in Korea they call the colour of the team. And once you establish that, you get everyone on the same page that they all understand what we do. How does T1 react to something? And it all becomes a shorthand Sabatine. Faker doesn't have to tell them all, right? Because they've already done that in the scrims, in all the past games. They all know basically what the next move is and who's aggressive and who goes where and who follows up. And then all he calls is the connective tissue. He just calls like, right, go now, or like push bot, or I base, or some shit, right? Well, that's what Carrigan does in FaZe if people don't know. He doesn't micro you from the beginning of the round. He gets players that he can trust, can do what the style is, and then he makes what you call the golden call. He makes the call in the 28th round of a 30-round game in Counter-Strike that wins you the game at the end, like the little switch. Like you could imagine, for example, I'd have to go back and look at the comps, but if you go back and look at the comps, I'm pretty sure Faker was the one who told them, like, you can go in on that fight in the game 5 against BLG, like, we can win this or whatever when it looks like it's a hard... That's the sort of calling he's making. So the problem with that is, that's not Doinb calling anyway, as far as I can tell. Like, you don't need Doinb to do that. Like, if anything, you could have essentially any good, like, normal captain could probably do that. It's just the problem is the last thing to say on this topic. The one red herring I feel like here is this. You could do all these things, and Doinb might even be better at being a captain than Faker. Maybe he'd have a lot of success. But if you also want the end result to be a bit like T1 We Win Worlds, it's not even that Faker makes the best calls ever. I think, to me, to win like that is about timing. It's not pure luck, but there's luck involved in it. It's about when you make the call, not what the call is as much. You know what I mean? Like the difference between, like, people aren't really doing what fans think, which is they think before like a massive objective, like the shot caller like somehow fucking tells you everything that's going to happen and you go in and execute. It's like team fights are all messy. To me, the golden call is something like we can turn on them now as we're like running away from them in a fight, or go back, re-aggress on the Baron or something. That's like the kind of like small shot call that wins you the big game, and that's not actually like some giga brain mega thing. That's like it's more like feeling for the game. I think that's intuitive more than it's cerebral, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point though. Wasn't as stupid as it originally sounded, even though it definitely was out there. And as I say, I also think it's probably the least plausible move you could ever have. Like, I don't think Doinb will ever set foot in Korea except for international tournaments again in his career. Like, I think that's it. Like, he just seems like he's decided he lives in China now. That's where his whole life is. And I don't even think he wants to come to T1, by the way. That would be my guess. So it's all good. And also, the joke is that spot's right available for you on JDG, mate. Anytime you want to move in, we'll send you over the uniform. Don't worry about it. Or TES, you can choose. You pick which of the two. Because those two frauds can fuck right off, as that previous Kanavi discussion said. Okay, boys, do we have another hot take? Someone else have another one?
I've got one more for the modern fans. Okay, so no joke, I actually think...
Would be nice to cater to people watching League now, not people watching from 2015. Okay, go on.
Right. I think Blaber is deceptively, like, nowhere near, like, the NA GOAT status. Like, I actually think, like, Bjergsen and Doublelift are so far ahead, it's, like, not even, like, remotely funny. So, like, just to, like, give on to it, like, so Okay, let's just go for just take some of the examples like peak. Okay, right now Doublelift has like a comical peak where he's arguably the second best ADC in the world in season 2. We'll not get into that one. It's somewhat like tripe, but he spent like a variety of different times being arguably like top 5 in very competitive like ADC eras, like ridiculously so. Like he has like straight up bot lane wins against Rookie, Ruler, LWX. He's got like bot lane wins against Jackie and you know what I mean? Like good opponents. And by the way, they're like straight up, like not jungle ganks, like just straight up traditional 2v2 like laning. He's like breaking into the top 5. I don't think Blaber's been anywhere near the top 5 in like jungle for like any year basically in any of like career. I think most of the EU junglers smoked him out of the water most of the years. I think most of the Korean and LPL junglers smoked him out. So Bjergsen, again, top he's ever been. I think Bjergsen's best ever. He could argue, you could have made a real case. I remember Kelson Moser done this. He was the second best mid laner going into Worlds in 2016. Behind like Crown and Faker. Like they two, like it was like either Faker and then it was Bjergsen, or like Crown if you like believed in Crown and stuff like. There was people who legit thought he was very, 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 very good going into that tournament. No, obviously that tournament happened. Let's just say he was top 5, you know what I mean? Like, and I go, again, Blaber nowhere near it. The amount of times they've been in that, Bjergsen and Doublelift were moving around within those rankings for like years. And they were consistently like on loads of like different like teams with success. Now, Blaber does share this. However, here is a distinction. In all of Bjergsen and Doublelift's teams, when they played together and when they played separately, they were always either the best or the second or outright best player on the team. And there was almost no distinction. Every single Doublelift team was basically a Doublelift team, apart from the Bjergsen one, which was like a dual threat. And every Bjergsen team was a Bjergsen team, apart from some of like the mid-lane period ones where he has like Mike Young, where it's like a bit of his identity like hangs away. Blaber teams have been like all over the place, and like the best like Blaber team does correlate to like a very, very good period of time, but it happens like once. Bjergsen and Doublelift have got 3, 4, 5 like periods of being like outright it. And I think people get into the trap of making this comparison when it isn't really there for me. Like, I think a lot of people just look at championships, look at MVP voting, and they don't take into context how competitive NA was. Doublelift and Bjergsen won in much better and much more competitive years of NA. And then international. Now, Blaber has his top 4 at Worlds, but I think Bjergsen's win and then Bjergsen's more ethereal, and then Doublelift has his like over championship over IG, and then BO1s and stuff against actual teams that were like going to win Worlds, etc., etc.
I don't understand how we can even start the discussion about the GOAT of a region by selecting a jungler, to be frank. Like, I've never understood that. Like, junglers cannot like they don't lane. They're hitting grumps and krugs and looking at the minimap. Like, the hardest thing is to carry 2 camps while looking at your top lane in early game. When you're laning, you have to microspace. Like, the amount of clicks per second is just unreal. You have to CS trade. You have to calculate on the fly whether like the estimate risk reward of like using a spell, not using it, posturing forward for a CS, not posturing forward, baiting. There is like a millions of like intermediate skills that people can't see when people lane that junglers just straight don't have to do. Even supports have to space or trade at some timings to save CS for the ADC or deny CS from the opponents. So there is a huge proportion of the bot lane that falls back to the supports mechanics. Like, junglers just don't have that. So I agree. Like, for me, junglers are compared. Like, they're always compared among each other. Like, I compare junglers. You can compare Inspired to Blaber and Blaber to Canyon and Canyon, but you can't compare someone who's having to lane against Chovy versus what Inspired does in early game. Because, like, I can take a Platinum player and get him to do the same clear as Inspired does in probably a week, right? And then you have the rest. But the simple fact that, like, the first 10 minutes or the first 6 minutes of the game, you never have to play them. I know very few Platinum players that I can teach them for a week, and then they won't go 0-4 against Chovy in lane, probably 0-7. I think Chovy solo kills any Platinum in the first 6 waves of the game. So for this reason, I think that because they had to lane against their opponents and their direct counterparts from Asia, Doublelift and Bjergsen are for me the only candidates. I do believe that Jensen should be part of this equation. I actually think that like he's probably like, I think NA's being very ungrateful to a player that I think gave it all to the region, never decided to come back and played amazing and salvaged so many
Also had a lot of international runs in contrast to Bjergsen and Doublelift. That's kind of his area.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think they celebrate a lot, like people that stayed for very short amount of time, like, you know, Niski or Perks, but they really never cherished Jensen for like what he's contributed to. And I think that's peak Jensen, was in an era where it was way more competitive. Like mid lane was much harder to be the best at. Whereas I think from 2014 to 2016, there was really few players. You had Pound, Dade, Crown, Faker, BDD from Asia, maybe like Rookie, maybe one of the two others like Easy Hoon. And then in EU, you had XPK, Febiven. And so it was much less dense that if you go to the 2019, 2020, when you start having the Chovy and all these kids coming, you know, the showmakers and stuff. And I think that Jensen shined still at that time. And it was the only one because even Bjergsen was falling off back then. So my discussion for the GOAT would actually be probably between Bjergsen and Jensen, because I do believe that like they have been able to really withstand the competition internationally in terms of showing at least their own skills. Whereas I think that Doublelift has been lackluster. Like it's very hard for me, even if he was insane very early in the very early days of the game when the bar kind of rose, right? We cranked a little bit the pressure. I think that if you're remembered for dying with your flash so often as an ADC, you kind of dismissed for me. I'm genuinely like that. That's a thing that is remembered for. It's still like internationally, that's what people remember Doublelift for. Whereas I think that Jensen and Bjergsen have had really great runs where people were like, oh, NA shit, but man, this player, if you give him teammates, he could do something because he was like ahead in lane against him. He was doing that things in this team fight that I haven't seen. So I would say Jensen and Bjergsen for me are the only candidate. And whoever puts even Inspired in it, for me, it's jungle. It's a different pantheon.
Put it this way, I mean, what's unfortunate there is the pun of Pantheon, but he means obviously like the Greek concept of like a multiple gods, etc., not the fucking broken champion. That
sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that because some pleb might think it because it's even played in fucking jungle at the moment. So I just thought I'd reference that. Okay. No, by the way, I actually agree with that bigger point. It's the same as the reason why I often tell people what I just said earlier about top laners. You're not allowed to be the best top laner ever if you played weak side most of your career, in my opinion, because if you're actually the best top player ever, mate, they'd have built the whole team around being topside map. Like you would have had the Naguri treatment, the Shy treatment. You'd have had all that. That's just the way the game works. It's just, I'm sorry, it just is. But it's even the same in football. If you have the best winger, you make the whole fucking game. You play like whatever, one striker or something, don't you? And they have all about this winger being set up all the time. So to me, the same thing applies to the carry roles in the game, which is I'm going to go further. I think jungle and support, you're not allowed to be the GOAT. I'm sorry. So Core JJ isn't in this conversation. I used the MVP a load of times because MVP, people like things like with the Doinb factor of like, but where can I see what you did to the team? Did you make a sick call there? Are you the cohesive factor? The problem with this is we're just saying who's the best player. And if we're saying who's the best player, it has to be what we're seeing on our screen. And I agree with you. Junglers don't lane and support sort of lane, but actually half of their game at this point in time is roaming anyways. That's what everyone loves. So in my opinion, you have to be a top mid or an ADC probably to be the GOAT. Spoiler, it's NA, so we can take top lane out of the equation. It's just mids and ADCs, and the three names are the names you guys said. If anything, the hot take is, I agree, the actual real GOAT conversation I think is just Jensen against Bjergsen. The reason why Doublelift gets in there is because of all the championships, because he's got the most. Now, yeah, he does, by the way, have some of these championships with Jensen and Bjergsen, all of them, except the first one, basically. So that in itself is why you can't just do the ring counting thing. But the reason why I sort of agree with Zabatine is this, because I think the biggest sin of Doublelift is what he told you, and you all saw on his stream every single year he was a player in League of Legends. He phoned in every regular fucking split he played. I think maybe here's the thing, maybe off the top of my head, the first moment he joins each team, he tries. When he joins TSM, I've no doubt he tries. When he joins Team Liquid, he wants to prove you wrong, he tries. And also he had that whole fucking separate thing that probably gave him extra motivation. But once he gets a year or two into a team, it's not a joke. He actually literally takes spring off, or he says, who gives a fuck about spring? That's half the year back then. That's like saying I'm going to take the whole NFL regular season off, see you in the playoffs. Mate, the playoffs is like 3 games. Like, you better be like the actual GOAT in the playoff games, you're never going to get... So I think where he's fucked up is, he really did think, and he was on some very good teams, Doublelift, if I just get to the playoffs, that's when I start playing. What he missed was the greatest players of all time are playing in random regular season games, mate. The thing about the all-time great players is they almost do sort of try every game they play. They play in a playing match like it was the world's final. That's what makes the GOATs the GOATs. So I also agree, it should be Jensen and Bjergsen. And the reason why Jensen and Bjergsen is a way better matchup than people realise is because Bjergsen has all the domestic success and then Jensen has all the international success. There's not even that much overlap. So it's essentially, what flavour of League of Legends do you want? So I think that, and to go back though, Blaber isn't even in this convo for me. That's why you better put the word jungle on before you say NA GOAT. NA GOAT, get the fuck out of here. First of all, I'm just going to put this out there. Has Blaber ever done anything internationally? Am I missing something? He's been at all the fucking worlds. Has he ever done anything internationally? Like, I've never seen a single tournament where I was like, he was one of the best junglers in the tournament. People will even forget, in the early days, he used to have to sit on the bench behind Svenskeren, who was not only the one taking them to like that top 4 worlds in 2018, the next year he was the MVP of the whole fucking LCS. After that, in came Blaber in the famous 2020 lineup. Now, people forget the 2 years where Blaber looked his best. He had Niski and then Perks. These are the fucking mid laners that win their junglers the MVPs. These are your dream fucking mid laner if you're a jungler, especially a like ganking active jungler. Because there's the other thing. Here's what makes Blaber overrated for me. I think he hits everything that a pleb wants from a jungler. I'll give you a quick analogy. If people don't know, if you haven't followed the game Counter-Strike in depth, you're all going to think that Heaton is like a candidate for the GOAT of Counter-Strike. He's the most famous player of all time, right? He wasn't even vaguely a GOAT candidate in Counter-Strike because his game was a lot of flash. He was about spraying people and being aggressive. But the actual, like, on his team, he would even tell you the best player was a guy called Potty, who was like the control player who wins all the clutches and gets all the like key kills in the middle of the round and shot calls the fucking game. So in the same fashion, if I had to design a jungler from NA to make every dickhead NA fan go, yeah, that's the greatest performance I've ever seen, he would be a Lee Sin player who ganked 24/7. The mid laner said, just do whatever you want, mate, I'll play for you. And then he just gets to go around the map with a roaming gank squad, just pulling off fucking Lee Sin ganks. But here's the problem. When I take that guy and I go, sorry, mate, this isn't just little kids, you're in the ball pit at fucking Chuck E. Cheese. You actually have to go to Worlds and you're going to have to play Maokai against someone. Or you're going to have to play a Sejuani against a Korean. In that game, mate, forget like, would I put the gun against my head? I would just fucking pull the trigger myself before the game even began. I'd never win in a video game Minecraft Unlive because like, I would never win. I would never ever win that series. I'll never, if I put Blaber in the scenario I just described to you where we're playing Sejuani, Maokai and it's a BO5 against a Korean team, we're never winning this series ever. Like there's not even a conceivable way. So I think essentially for his strengths he got overrated. And my problem here is this. It was fine in 2020 because it was his first like proper year as the starter. It was maybe even fine the first couple of years. He's still easing into it. People take time to adjust. He's been to pretty much like every Worlds, it feels like, every MSI, it feels like. And he not only has never ever done the shit I'm talking about, but where's the development? Like remember, Jankos began as the player I just described, by the way, the Lee Sin player who ganks all the time and his mid lane doesn't give a fuck. But he later on became a master of the jungle. He became the smartest jungler. He became the one that had the amazing comms. He became what I think is the most underrated thing in jungle ever, which is the fucking cover jungler. The jungler where a gank doesn't happen, not because you called for it and set it up as the laner, but because your jungler saw into the matrix it was going to happen, and he just turned up before the gank could happen. Or as the guy was walking in lane, your jungler walks into lane too. And so on screen, on the stream, nothing happened. But actually that was supposed to be your mid laner getting ganked and going behind in the game. And that, like, Blaber's never shown me any of that stuff, boys. I've never seen that dimension from him. So I do agree he's fucking overrated. Because remember, that 2020 season was 5+ years ago now, guys. 5 years is an entire league career. If he was going to figure it out, he'd have done it by now. And I'll tell you what gives away to me that he isn't like a generational like League of Legends jungler outside of his region. Notice the best he played ever was the Niski and the fucking Perks one. You put in mid laners that don't give a fuck about any of the shit we're talking about. Like, I come with you and I help you. Put in, like, Emenez, just a mechanics player. Put in fucking Loki, just a Korean, just playing the fucking game from mid lane. And this guy, put in Jojo, who himself isn't, like, some macro wizard. And there's nothing. Blaber's just a really good player in the LCS. But he's not even, like, definitely the best jungler. And lastly, Inspired has made him look like a fucking clown the last 3 years at this point in time. Like, Inspired with any teammates, mate, makes this guy just look silly. And head-to-head absolutely clowns him every time I've ever seen them play. So I agree. I think he's mad overrated. It's sad because he is a good player, but he's mad overrated.
I love him. Right, I worked with him at the very beginning of his career in 2017. I really thought he was very promising. Pretty stubborn in the way he plays, but very promising. I do believe that if he was playing in the LEC, he would be bottom 3. Like straight, I think Sheo smokes him. I think Razork smokes him. I think Elyoya is much better. I think Skumon's much better. I mean, you got to go pretty deep into the pool of the EU jungle to actually have someone that you'll be like, oh, I'll take Blaber over him. I think that if Sheo was playing at C9 would be a way better team. Straight out.
That's the hot take.
The real hot take. I'll get to go get my Doublelift PowerPoint for you guys. You know what I mean? My Doublelift over Bjergsen and Jensen, and Steli's on that one. I've got to go prep that one. Try and get another couple of disciples on side. Can an ADC player actually be better than a mid laner? When it's convenient for Kiri, no. When it's not convenient for Kiri, yes. We'll see if I can get you on side.
By the way, I also agree with what Zabatine said. I actually think everything people tell me Razork's good at, Blaber is good at. Razork's just a better version of it. Even he has his fucking feelings. By the way, I spent half the episodes banging on how Razork's so overrated and he actually can't close the game and he doesn't know what to do at a certain macro point. Except at least he's like a few years younger, as far as I know. I'm not sure how old they are, but in terms of experience at least.
I think Isma is already better than Blaber.
That might be too far. Listen, that could be too hot.
At the end of this speed, right?
That might be too spicy.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean...
Listen,
you do it every time.
Kiri, you have to understand that flag just got in his eyes on that one. That tricolour just fucking...
He's from Belgium.
Listen, I've said this before, Zabatine. There is no such thing as a country called Belgium. Do you know why? My country created it. It is a PvP zone for Germans, Dutch and French to fight in. And you listen...
It's a PK zone.
Yeah, that's why if you ever go there, my question always goes like this, Zabatine, because I've been in all the esports. Weirdly, in some esports, the Belgian is more just like a French guy. He's French, being the French culture. Then you get the Belgian who's sort of a Dutch guy. They just are these people, so anyway, whatever. It's all good. The Isma one's too much for... Listen, they're too rich for my taste. I'll push that plate away. You were cooking before, that one just went way too far.
Okay, no problem. We'll see in the future.
No, every time I think about it, I'm just thinking a bit like that. The Isma that, like, I had counted how many times he failed a bot lane dive, and it's like 9 consecutive bot lane dives he died on. I was like... Can I hold hands with Zabatine on this? Nah, fuck that. I can't even I can agree to that.
Should we do the last fan take? Because I've got one more fan take for you. This one's a good one because it doesn't actually matter what region you watch. It's one of the rare takes about the game itself. So a guy called Trocchio07 says... WASD change will result in Riot losing more players than inviting them into the game. Change will potentially ruin pro play and satisfaction for old ADC players and other roles. You can't properly balance for 2 different movement patterns, the champions he means, and he says holding both S and right click and auto spacing perfectly will just ruin so many champions. What do you think, boys?
This was my hot take a couple of weeks ago, and it got proven right, and all the wee fuckers in the comments were just basically saying that Kiri's an idiot, he doesn't know anything about all the esports I've watched, by the way. I know nothing about movement mechanics and character control and all that. You guys are all the fucking experts, right, okay? You are all the guys, and then what's that? Every single fucking video on my Twitter is like, guys, look how busted this is. I'm an absolute handless ape, and I can just kite like fucking ruler. And it's just like, that after that. The Callista's broken as well. Oh, Ezreal's broken as well. Guys, this might be disturbing. I'm not sure that this should be added to the game. And then you've got rioters just going, yes, we'll be reviewing this, and we will be phasing it into the game. We will add it to standard, and then eventually we will have it as a movement option and ranked. I swear to God, Riot has 2 options. We have to either nerf it, or they will obsolete years of, like, hand-eye coordination.
By the way, do you know the biggest fucking downer of that whole topic, Kiri, this is where Riot has actually outdone themselves. Do you know they themselves, one of them said some comment not that long ago that was along the lines of like, if it ends up being OP, we'll just get rid of it. Which is like, why are you bringing it in then? To me, if you bring it in, it's because you want it to. Here's the thing I don't get. I thought the whole point of adding that was actually, if anything, you're almost listening to my old 10-year-old take of like, League isn't about mechanics. And you're like, I want it to be about, I want everyone to be doing sick moves and stuff, even though this actually makes it easier. So, I don't know. Go on, keep going, boys.
I feel like the take is very accurate, and I think it's not in the sense of whether or not it's good for competitive, because I'm on your side here. I think that there is always a winning set of inputs, right? But the problem is when you have a winning set of inputs, it creates a pretty deep conflict between your legacy players and your new players, right? Because if the newer set of inputs is easier to pick up with, but it's worse, it means that the new players will have to first learn the game through a certain set of mechanics, hit a ceiling, and have to relearn, which is gonna eventually balance where the majority of the players are going to be the one asking for their inputs to become standard, and they all want to be replaced. But if you kill the legacy skill, then you demotivate your existing fan base, who is players like me who are in their 30s, have all the buy power for their now legacy $500 skins. So it's a huge value, right? I think that my generation, right, the millennials and the early Zoomers, represent the biggest buy power for Riot Games. And so if they betray through inputs all the legacy skill we do have, we will leave and we will not return, because we have lives and we're going to find ways of entertaining ourselves that are different. While there is absolutely no promise that because of WQSD, new players will enjoy the game. And once again, if their input is better, we leave. If their input is worse, they will eventually leave. So it's extremely toxic, while having, I think we're all pretty old gentlemen here. We've seen a lot of gaming in esports since the early 2000s. And every time there's been a conflict of inputs and motion, the games has gone, it's a dragster launched against the wall, because it's just fracture communities, and fracture communities leave games because half of the community is advocating for the game being dead for a very specific reason, and the other one becomes a niche elite like the melee player that will keep the game alive, but the game will never expand ever again.
All right, my take on this, because obviously I'll try not to repeat the things I said on the one where Kira made it, like you say, like a few episodes back. So first of all, I'll take a point I think I did make during that one, which is I think I made the point, because it's a classic one I've made many times. Didn't I make the point that one of the things I didn't like about StarCraft 2 was that it took away a lot of what were considered boring things, like sending the worker to go to the mining patch, but doing it efficiently, and like basically like animation cancelling. It took a lot of that away, and it just made it like, right, the worker just does it efficiently anyway. You get to the supply of the massive death ball, you can just air move the whole death ball, you don't have to micro everything, and essentially it took a lot of that aspect out. Here's what's funny that people won't get. That already sort of exists in League anyway, because League isn't a super mechanical game. I know you can be mechanically excellent, but actually what people liked about StarCraft 2 is what I think people like about League of Legends. It's not about insane micro, but it's about decision-making and macro decisions. That's what people want to see in the game. Now, there are occasional moments where they want to see the insane micro, and there's a little bit of that in League, but part of that in League comes from the fact that it isn't streamlined. The fact that you actually have to, the ADC is the best role to use for this example, because famously on ADC, you have to literally click away from the character, then click back to attack them, but also to dodge and a move. So that means there's a certain amount of bandwidth of mechanical skill, and with your brain of remembering to do this intuitively before you then like get the hit on the person, then think of the next thing. That taking up some of the bandwidth is good. It's at the point that, if you remember, the Doper guy made about how Faker played was, half of what Faker did in lane wasn't actually outhands you. It was like load you up with the bandwidth of thinking the jungler was coming, or that he's faking a base, or like stepping forwards when you think he'll step. Things that like basically made you have to use some of your brain bandwidth up, so you had less to actually focus on doing a sick auto attack and a dodge him. So my problem here is this: what are the games that pioneered WASD as necessary? FPS FPS games, right? FPS games, you're looking from the POV, and because everyone is aiming with super slow for low sensitivities and massive mouse pads, you're all basically seeing who can quicker aim at a pixel on the screen and shoot it. That has no connection to League of Legends at all. League of Legends isn't even a POV game. You can see the guy the whole time. That's why you can look back and look away. Imagine in Counter-Strike, if you couldn't strafe, you would have to press the right key to turn, walk forwards a bit, turn back, and then aim at the guy. Like, that would be absurd. So in that game, WSD makes it better. It elevates the experience. In League, it'll make it worse. I mean, one of the biggest problems I have is this. Not only is the bandwidth worse, League already, as any skill shot champion knows, has the most generous, some would say broken hitboxes imaginable. Every hook champion player knows. You don't have to land it on them. You land it slightly at the edge and it snaps on this motherfucker. So already, if people get super streamlined, every good ADC player just has 95% clean mechanics because of this. It's going to ruin every single fucking team fight. And then also, half of what makes ADC champions able to be balanced is that, like, they actually, think about it, right? They're not mid laners. They don't just dump all the fucking damage. They have to stay alive. The longer they stay alive, the more DPS they do. That's the whole point of their role. Well, the problem is, the easier you make it for them to dodge and or kite and or rapidly fire, you are making their role OP'd by default. You're not doing anything to the other roles, but you're making their role just OP and easier. And the reason why I already know we can't have that is because as of right this moment, before WASD in pro play, I'm looking at all the regions and the ADCs are carrying the fuck out of these games. People like Ruler are smooth. Even in that KT Gen G series, as much as I was talking about BDD, Doctam had the life series of his entire fucking life. Like, he could die tomorrow, he'll never have a game that good again. That was part of why they were able to win that fucking game for reals. Like, he had a fucking insane series. So you can't make people like Ruler better at the game. And you definitely, by the way, can't take Flackhead and make it so tomorrow he's mechanically equal to opposite. You will ruin the game completely. And I think you will just skew this game to an extent that will actually destroy it. As much as people bitch about League, I actually think at the moment the role balance is fairly reasonable. I actually think there's a lot of like leeway for individual players to make it work. It's not, you don't just pick this champion or, oh, I'll play top and he plays ADC, so I guess he wins. No, I feel like League's actually in a healthy spot in terms of the game. It's not for viewership, so I wouldn't be fucking with this at all. And lastly, as I said, the weirdest part of all is that messaging, which I think is counter-signaling of, don't worry, if it becomes OP, I guess we'll just like nerf it. So I was like, then what are we doing? To me, you only bring this in to make the game better. You think it, essentially, you'd have to disagree with everything I said and think that's superior. You want everyone to be WSD sliding around. And if anyone's seen any of the clips online, by the way, some of the clips, which remember are people who've only used it for a week or two, are utterly insane already. Like, there are some clips that are impossible, bro. Like this clip, if I told you it wasn't WSD, you'd just think that's the greatest player to ever play ADC. It's a rando just in like a fucking practice queue or something. You know, like, it's mental. It's mental.
And one thing I just didn't understand about it is, and the target audience of like what they're going about, like the whole like Fortnite stuff like that, okay, is if you were going to do it, why was it not controller? Like, that's what the bit like
that's a good
like
point. Yeah.
Controller is literally designed for like 2-stick thing, but then your thumbs have to move off of the stick to then, unless you do the fucking Gundam thing where you hold your controller backwards like the Japanese do, right? But that has like limitations of like control and that. And that makes a lot more sense, and you can have an entire, like, ecosystem of that existing, and it doesn't infringe on the PC guys. Like, a console release of League of Legends. Like, that makes sense if that's Riot's, like, point. This doesn't make sense. It just doesn't line up with any
It will come
value.
eventually. The way they announce Valorant for console, I think they are aiming for that. I think that's one of the key reasons. I think it's expanding to the console market because I think they're trying to, like, look for any source of customer acquisition. I think a lot of the way the game is tailored right now is just very streamlined. I do understand the strategy, but I think that it is a pretty, to my eyes, it seems that the health of League of Legends and Riot Games is pretty shaky. Because if you're ready to open the Pandora's box, knowing, because they're not that stupid. I think there is plenty of game designers in the hallways and the offices of Riot Games that are like, man, I've been working on League for like 5 years. I work on Valorant. And I think this is the Pandora's box. And if they're ready to open the Pandora's box, I think they're pretty desperate to get new player acquisition, because I think the numbers are probably dropping faster than what expected. And they're like, do or die, otherwise we'll just put it in maintenance. Just keep the esports alive, and then we'll see how it goes. The way, I don't know, like Epic and Epic Games with Rocket League, they don't really care about it. It's like, It used to be great, and now it costs a lot of money. There is no player acquisition. People go on Fortnite. They're like, yeah, fuck it. And I'm pretty sure like that's kind of like how Riot behaves with League right now. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we won't spend any more time and effort in League of Legends anymore.